Soo-jin buys a soda, pays for it, and immediately walks out, completely forgetting to take it with her. When she rushes back, she sees a rough-looking man standing in her spot. He's holding her soda. At least, she thinks it's her soda. So naturally, she does the only logical thing. She grabs it from his hand, drinks the whole thing in front of him, and gives him back the empty can. Chol-soo is left speechless. He just watched some random girl steal the drink he just paid for. The real punchline, however, comes a minute later. Back on the bus, Soo-jin realizes her wallet is also missing. And when she goes back to the store again, the cashier hands her not only the wallet, but her original, unopened soda. The horrifying realization of her mistake washes over Soo-jin. She looks around to apologize to the man she just robbed. But he's already gone. A perfectly awkward encounter, destined to never happen again. Or so she thought. Soo-jin is the beloved daughter of a construction tycoon. Chol-soo, on the other hand, is a carpenter, working on one of her father's construction sites. She spends her time observing sights from the clean interior of a luxury car. He spends his getting yelled at by his foreman for being too honest. They exist in completely different worlds that happen to occupy the exact same space. And one day, she sees him, the soda thief, her victim, working on her father's site. She wants to get out of the car, ready to finally apologize, but interrupted by her father's return. But the connection is there. So when Soo-jin urgently needs a carpenter for her own project, she knows exactly who to ask for. Her father agrees, but offers a stern piece of advice about this particular worker. He's a good carpenter, but a rough character. Don't get involved. Advice she seems determined to ignore. Just as the elevator doors open, there he is, the soda guy. Her first instinct is pure embarrassment. She averts her gaze, trying to make herself invisible. But then, curiosity gets the better of her. She finds a spot around the corner, hiding just out of sight, secretly watching him. And as she observes him, undisturbed, she is forced to admit, the rugged carpenter has a certain undeniable charm. Later, as she's about to buy another soda, she gets a taste of her own medicine. In a perfect reversal of their first meeting, Chol-soo snatches the can from the machine, chugs the entire thing down, and gives her back the empty can, just as she did to him. And this time, faced with his playful revenge, all Soo-jin can do is smile. A smile she's still wearing on the way back. But suddenly Chol-soo's voice calls out from behind her.
걸어가서요?
에? 아니요. 예, 저기는 버스 아니 저 택시 타고 가는.
He says nothing more and just walks away. But just as Soo-jin hails a taxi, an opportunity for a true introduction presents itself in the form of a snatch thief on a motorcycle. Chol-soo doesn't even hesitate. With a perfectly timed car door, the thief and the motorcycle are sent flying. This clumsy, unexpected act of heroism completely captures Soo-jin's heart. After helping her repair the damaged purse, he insists on giving her a ride home in his beat-up, windowless Jeep. He puts on a pair of dusty work goggles and thoughtfully hands a pair to her as well. And for a woman used to her father's luxury sedans, there is something undeniably, thrillingly real about this entire scene. Looking at this man, a man of few words but decisive action, a new feeling begins to stir in her heart. The next day, Soo-jin dresses up and brings drinks to the construction site, hoping to accidentally see him again. But Chol-soo was not there. The sense of disappointment is sharp and immediate. But she is not a woman who gives up easily. With the help of her best friend, a new chance encounter is meticulously planned. They track him down to a late-night food stall where he's drinking with his friends. Her beauty turns every head at the table, except for one. Chul-soo pointedly remains unimpressed and uninterested. But for Soo-jin, this isn't a rejection. It is a confirmation that here, finally, is a faithful and steadfast man. Exactly the kind of man she has been looking for. So, she is the one who makes the first move.
잠깐, 근데 또 소리가 나온다는데 어떤 직업이야? 어머, 야, 그냥 당장 말을 해줘야지. 진짜.
실력 공부만 하지 말고 좋아. 그리고 기봉이 형도 장가는 가야 될 거야. 아니야.
At just a single glance from Chul-soo, his friends quietly make room for her at the table. The loud, boisterous chatter of the food stall fades into the background. In a room full of people, they exist in their own silent world. Because beneath the table, hidden from view, their hands have found each other. A tight, secret grasp that says everything their words cannot. A cup of strong soju, a first, passionate kiss. And so begins the beautiful, idyllic chapter of their love story. They believe they have found their fairy tale ending. They have no idea that fate is already writing a far crueler epilogue. The world shrinks to contain just the two of them. Every day is a shared adventure, a lesson in love. He teaches her how to swing a baseball bat, and every time she connects with the ball, he is the one who dances with joy. Their love is built in small domestic moments. She learns to sew, making him custom suits. And he, in turn, fueled by his love for her, studies tirelessly, aiming for his architect's license. A better future. For them. She waits for him outside the exam hall like a devoted wife, a smile perpetually on her face. A person in love, it is said, is a person who has rediscovered how to be a fool. And she, in this moment, is the happiest of fools. But her father is a shrewd businessman. He notices his daughter's sudden, radiant change, and he asks to meet this new man in her life. The simple request sends Soo-jin into a panic. She knows her proud, demanding father will never approve of a poor carpenter. So she tells a small, protective lie, a lie that feels more like a prophecy. She tells him that Chul-soo is already an architect.
무슨 콩사판 노가다 같은 놈이라며?
아유, 무슨 소리예요? 내가 무슨 노가다라.
그럼 뭐하는 사람이야?
When she tells him her father wants to meet, Chul-soo refuses, instantly. He is acutely aware of the vast social gulf that separates them, and he is terrified of what will happen when her father sees it too. He knows a life of hardship in a way this sheltered, beautiful woman never could. But Soo-jin, in a desperate, naive attempt to force their worlds together, sets up an ambush. During a date, her parents happen to arrive. And the moment her father sees Chul-soo, both of their worlds implode. Her father realizes this is the rough carpenter from his construction site, and Chul-soo realizes that the father of the woman he loves is his own big boss. He wants to run. He needs to escape. But Soo-jin, oblivious to the professional and social minefield she's just created, holds him in place. The air freezes. The silence is thick with unspoken class distinctions. It is broken only when Soo-jin suddenly feels unwell and leaves for the restroom. And in her absence, her father unleashes his verdict. Looking at this poor, unworthy boy, a man who can't even afford a stable home, his protective rage explodes. He fires Chul-soo on the spot and forbids him from ever seeing his daughter again.
부모님은?
따님께서 얘기 안 하던가요?
자네? 지분 있나?
이만 가보겠습니다.
내일부터 나오지 마.
식사는 마치고 가지 그래요. 아니, 그게 아니라 우리 수진이 오면
저 먼저 가보겠습니다. 따님하고의 일은 죄송합니다. 앞으로는 연락할 일 없고.
The tense silence is shattered by a scream from outside. Ye-jin has collapsed in the pouring rain. And in that one chaotic moment, class, money, and status become meaningless. Without a second's thought, Chol-soo is the first to move. He rushes to her side, scoops her up into his arms, and runs desperately towards the hospital. Her father can only watch. This poor, unworthy boy he just fired, acting with a decisiveness and raw, protective instinct that he himself failed to show. And in that moment, the foundation of his judgment begins to crack. A newfound respect takes root. Later, seeing Chol-soo's face, etched with genuine worry, Ye-jin collapses into his arms, her tears finally flowing freely. And as the father watches his daughter, the most precious thing in his world, cling to this man for comfort, his hardened protective shell finally melts away. He understands. This love, this sincere, unshakable connection, is a treasure that no amount of money can ever buy. Ye-jin gets her fairy tale wedding, marrying the man she fought so hard for. Their newlywed life is a blissful, intoxicating blur of happiness. Chol-soo, in turn, passes his exams and officially becomes the architect he was always meant to be. Everything is perfect. It starts small, a forgotten task, a moment of confusion on a familiar road. The house that was once her warm, safe sanctuary now sometimes feels like a stranger's home. This creeping, inexplicable change fills Ye-jin with a deep and gnawing unease. So in secret, filled with a quiet dread, she goes to the hospital, and after a long series of tests, the doctor delivers the news, a single devastating sentence that strikes down from a clear blue sky.
수진 씨, 알츠하이머병에 걸렸어.
네? 뭐요?
알츠하이머.
그게 뭐예요?
지난달에 답하신 질문들, 치매 판별 질문들이었어.
저 몇 살인지 아시잖아요. 저 이제 27이에요. 어떻게 치매에 걸릴 수가 있어요?
걸릴 수 있어요.
그럼 어떻게 되는 거예요, 나?
육체적인 죽음보단 정신적인 죽음이 더 먼저 오게 돼요. 어서 서둘러 준비하시는 게 좋을 것 같습니다. 약을 먹으면 진행을 좀 늦출 수는 있지만 그것뿐이야.
수술 같은 거
회사 다니시나? 빨리 그만두시게. 좀 지나면 컴퓨터도 못하고 전화도 못 받게 돼. 물건 정리도 안 돼. 급기야는 아무것도 못하게 되지. 가족이 누군지, 친구가 누군지, 내가 누군지 점점 모든 기억들이 다 지워지게 되는 거야.
The diagnosis is as rare as it is cruel. Early onset Alzheimer. There is no cure. The doctor explains the terrible nature of the disease. It doesn't just steal your future. It erases your past. It is a slow, methodical unraveling of the self. First, the small things, then faces, names, memories, the very building blocks of who you are, until one day, you are a stranger in your own life. And with those few clinical words, her entire world shatters. She stumbles out into the blur of the crowded street, but she sees no one, hears nothing. There is only the sudden, violent roar of a new reality in her ears. and the sharp, physical agony of a future being stolen from her, moment by moment. A grief so profound, it feels as though her own soul is beginning to tear. She returns home and says nothing. She doesn't tell her husband about the doctor or the diagnosis. Instead, she puts on a brave face, a perfect mask of normalcy. She cooks a beautiful dinner, just as she always does. She plays their silly card game with him, a game they've played 1,000 times. But tonight, every familiar, happy moment is laced with a secret, unbearable sadness. Watching her husband, so full of life, so oblivious to the thief that has just broken into their future, it's too much. And when he isn't looking, she escapes to a quiet corner of the room. In private, she fights her losing battle. She draws his face, over and over, in a small notebook, a desperate attempt to tattoo his image onto her fading memory. But the disease is relentless. It is moving too fast. One morning, she wakes up early, carefully preparing what she believes is a beautiful, elaborate lunch for her husband. They say their goodbyes. Unassuming love. At lunchtime, surrounded by his curious colleagues, Chol-soo opens the 2 lunchboxes his wife so lovingly prepared, and his entire world goes cold. Inside is only rice. 2 boxes of plain white rice. A small, heartbreaking mistake that suddenly makes all of her other quirks fall into place. A terrifying puzzle, suddenly solved. He rushes to the hospital, desperate for answers. But the doctor's words are a death sentence he cannot accept. He pleads, begs for there to be a mistake. But the doctor's reply is laced with his own personal tragedy. His own wife died of the very same disease. And in that moment, Chol-soo freezes, while her husband is reeling from the diagnosis. Soo-jin is walking down a busy street. And then, suddenly, a fog descends upon her mind. Everything disappears. Who she is, where she is, what she was just doing, gone. She stares blankly at her own phone, a familiar object that has suddenly become a complete mystery. A tide of pure, primal anxiety washes over her as her world internally collapses. It is in this state of terrified confusion that a face appears from her distant past. Her ex-boyfriend. Her broken memory latches onto the one thing it can still recognize, a faint echo of a long-dead passion. She reaches for his hand, thinking they are still in love. And he, seeing her vulnerability, decides to take advantage. Meanwhile, Chol-soo, now frantic with worry, calls her phone. A strange man's voice answers. The phone, he says, was just found on the side of the road. That single lie tells him everything he needs to know. His wife is in danger. He runs, like a madman, through the streets, his heart pounding with a fear he's never known. But by a sheer miracle, in that car with her ex, Soo-jin's memory snaps back into place. She escapes, and she runs to the one place that has always been their sanctuary, the batting cages. It is there, exhausted, terrified, and trying to process the horrifying gaps in her own mind, that her husband finally finds her.
바보야. 공을 끝까지 봐야지.
좀 이상해. 공이 9개밖에 안 나와. 원래 10개지, 어? 10개 나오는 게 맞지? 얘기 들었어?
무슨 얘기?
내 머릿속에 지우개가 있다. 우리 헤어지자.
무슨 소리야?
자기 말이 맞았어. 영원히 행복할 수는 없는 거야.
대체 뭔 소리야?
다 끝난 거야. 기억이 사라지는데 행복이 무슨 소용이고 사랑은 또 뭐야. 다 잊어버릴 텐데. 나한테 잘해줄 필요 없어. 나 다 까먹을 건데.
내가 다신 다 기억해줄게. 나 머리 좋잖아. 건축사 시험도 한 번에 딱 붙고.
자긴 너무 자신만만해. 세상이 얼마나 무서운 줄 알아?
그런 말을 안 잊어먹는구나.
그걸 어떻게 잊어먹냐? 됐어.
걱정하지 마. 고치료 방법 나올 거야.
부모를 잃었어, 나라를 잃었어? 울긴 왜 울어? 바보같이. 그냥 나만 가면 돼. 나 보내주라. 응?
한판 해야지. 내기 할까? 아이씨, 왜 울어? 내가 다 기억해준다니까. 내가 있잖아. 응? 다 잊어버리면 내가 짠하고 나타나는 거야. 응? 이렇게 새로 꼬시는 거야. 네가 안 넘어오고 배겨? 매일 새로 시작하는 거야.
He refuses to give up on her. He makes good on the promise he made at their wedding, to never abandon her no matter what. Together they wage a quiet war against her fading memory. Their home transforms. Every wall, every door, and every object becomes a canvas covered in small, colorful post-it notes. Each note is a breadcrumb, a lifeline, a tiny anchor to reality. It is her own brave and desperate attempt to navigate the shrinking map of her mind each day and help her remember important things the next day. But the fog is too thick. On his birthday, she meticulously plans a lunch with her parents, circling the date on the calendar. But by the time he is meant to arrive, the memory of what she was celebrating, and even who she was celebrating for, is gone. When her ex-boyfriend arrives at the door with a gift, her broken mind defaults to a past it still remembers. She welcomes him in, believing he is her husband. The scene that greets Chul-soo when he walks in the door is a living nightmare. His wife, with another man. And worse, when he confronts them, she looks at him, her husband, with the blank, terrified eyes of someone looking at a dangerous stranger. The fight that ensues is born of heartbreak and confusion. She defends her ex-boyfriend, scratching Chul-soo in the struggle, convinced he is an intruder. His anger, his pain, his utter helplessness. It all comes pouring out in a brutal, desperate beating he unleashes on the man outside. It's a rage that is only stopped by the arrival of her parents. Her father, seeing the unbearable chaos, offers him an escape, a divorce, a way out. But Chul-soo refuses. The love he has for her, he says, has already seeped into his bones. But a moment later, devastating sight proves just how far she has gone. She stands there, lost, confused, having had an accident, no longer even aware of her own body's needs. Trembling, he takes off his own shirt to cover her. But as he does, he sees her flinch. In her eyes, there is no recognition, no comfort. Only the cold, alien fog of a stranger's gaze. The next day, as Chul-soo prepares to leave for work, believing she no longer knows him at all, a small, hesitant voice calls out from behind him.
영미 씨.
응?
사랑해.
나도. 일찍 올게.
moment he steps outside, the mask of strength shatters. He breaks down, crying uncontrollably. Because the name she called out wasn't his, it was her ex-boyfriend's. And in that moment, all the logic and understanding in the world cannot compete with the simple, searing pain of jealousy. But a moment later, inside the house, Soo-jin's own fractured memory begins to shift. Her gaze falls upon a photograph on the fridge, and like a lightning strike, everything comes rushing back. She remembers. She remembers what she just did, whom she mistook her own husband for, and the weight of her mistake, the sudden crushing wave of guilt and self-loathing, is more than she can bear. She knows in that moment what she must do. That evening, when Chol-soo returns from work, the house is empty, eerily silent. His eyes scan the empty rooms, and finally land on a letter left on the table. And as he picks it up, a cold, familiar dread washes over him. This isn't just a letter, it is a goodbye.
미안해요. 정말 미안해요. 당신 마음 아프게 하고 싶지 않은데. 어떡해요. 당신 지금 울고 있어요? 나 때문에 울게 하기 싫었는데, 당신 슬퍼하는 모습 보기 싫은데, 행복하게만 해주고 싶었는데, 내가 결국 당신 마음 아프게 하네요. 철수씨, 사랑하는 철수씨, 제발 오해하지 마세요. 난 당신만을 사랑해요. 당신만을 생각해요. 당신만을 기억해요. 할 말이 너무 많은데 내 마음 다 보여주고 싶은데 기억이 남아있는 이 짧은 시간 동안 어떻게 내 마음을 전할 수 있을까? 마음이 급해요. 나 김수지는 당신 최철수만을 사랑합니다. 이것만 믿고 싶지 않은데, 잊으면 안 되는데, 당신도 내 마음 알고 있죠? 당신도 내 마음 느끼고 있죠? 기억이 또 사라질까봐 두려워요. 내 마음 다 얘기하고 싶은데, 다 보여주고 싶은데, 사랑해요. 미안해요. 건망증 때문에 당신을 만났고, 바로 그 건망증 때문에 당신을 떠났어요. 당신을 만난 건 내 일생 최고의 행운이었어요. 당신은 하늘이 내게 주신 가장 소중한 선물이에요. 나는 당신을 기억하지 않아요. 당신은 그냥 나한테 스며들었어요.
The words of love she left behind now feel like a row of sharp, gleaming blades, piercing his heart. It hurts to even breathe. And so begin the long, empty years. He travels everywhere, searching every corner she might have gone, desperately chasing a ghost. But it is all in vain. Without her, his world has lost all its color. The passionate man he once was withers into a desolate wasteland of grief. And then, after a seemingly endless winter of waiting, a fragile, impossible spring, untouched letter lying at his door. He picks it up and recognizes the handwriting immediately. Gentle, familiar. It is from her. Without hesitation, Chol-soo rushed to the hospital where Soo-jin was being treated.
손님 오셨어요.
손님?
This is love. It is a promise that even if a cruel eraser exists in your mind, wiping away every trace of us with the turning of the day, I will become 1,000 pencils, and I will tirelessly write through the long, dark hours before the dawn, just to redraw the blueprint of our happiness for you, again and again, until the seas run dry and the rocks turn to dust. I will be your memory. Until the very end of time, I will be your love.